Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special Armchair Keepers of Arcane Secrets edition, a special edition of our podcast. I'm your host, Matt Ryan. I'm joined with
Bob Geis for a very special episode.
That's right. So Bob and I it's like a bye week for us. We're not gaming. It's a bye week on our bi-weekly game. We're not playing, but we dearly love talking to each other.
It's an excuse to chat.
So one of us thought, hey, let's just talk about since we don't have anything to talk about masks, let's talk about some of our favorite Call of Cthulhu campaigns.
Yeah, and see and so that led to me overanalyzing this as I want to do. What is meant by a campaign? So, I mean, there's campaigns and there's scenarios, and Call of Cthulhu is filled with campaigns and even more filled with scenarios. So, I want to know, Matt, what are you thinking when you're saying, let's talk about our favorite campaigns versus scenarios?
It's an excellent distinction, right? I think that without a whole lot of thought, when I think of campaign, I think about some big published. Oh, and we're going to talk about published. We're going to published
Yep.
products that right things that if something here that you don't have, you kind viewer don't have, and you think, oh, maybe that sounds rad, I'll go get it. That
Yep.
will be a possibility. So immediately I think of some big packaged thing, right? That's
Mhm.
hours of play, many,
Yep.
many sessions. It's got an overarching villain or theme or there's some kind of plot structure that runs throughout all of the different sessions. So that's a campaign just by
Yep.
definition. Sure, right. I'm not saying anything that anybody doesn't know. The real question is, my question to you, Bob, are linked scenarios a campaign?
So I don't know. I would say no, because I think that there's a difference, right? You could argue that Orient Express is linked scenarios,
You
but
could.
it's held together with a tight framing device, which makes it a campaign. Now there's other loosely aligned scenarios like I think it's Trail of Sagwa is one of them that has it's a series of things, but it's less it's more loosely defined. So I prefer a tight overarching narrative that drives the campaign, truly the campaign along. So that's how I define it. How about you?
I will put and I'm gonna we'll get into this later because Bob and I have each come up with two campaigns that we're going to talk about. Two campaigns that we both liked a lot, or I don't know if it's our faves, but they certainly rank right up there. And one of them is it's a series of linked scenarios. Now, it's a series of linked scenarios that I've done some work with to connect them further because I agree that a campaign ought to have a spine.
Mhm.
And, it doesn't have to be a super tight spine, but elements that appear in the beginning should resolve in the end,
Yep,
is what I think.
absolutely.
Right. So each of your little like the Horror on the Orient Express,
Hmm.
each one of those, you could take each one of those chapters and run them standalone, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
But what really resolves it is that they all fit together in kind of
Exactly.
one connection.
There's an
We
overall
skip.
purpose that you have to dip into in each of the scenarios.
That's right. There's one thing that I want to remind readers as we get into this, that Bob has been playing TTRPGs since high school,
And I'm really old,
and
ancient.
he's never taken a break. So you have played thousands of hours.
I have committed that portion of my life to gaming. Yes. I think that there
You're
was
you
like
are an
six
expert.
months.
You're an expert.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm an expert, but I'm definitely an addict. I do have a problem. I
You've spent a lot of time in the saddle with many systems, right?
Yeah.
And for this special episode, which we're not going to number, for those that have your scorecard, we're not going to number our special editions because it's too much bookkeeping on our end.
Yes.
I mean, look, this is about as close as we get to special effects.
That's right.
Bob, why don't you start? Why don't you start off with one of your fave
Okay.
campaigns?
I'm gonna. All right. So I'm gonna show you guys this Walker in the Waste by Pagan Publishing. This is a very old campaign. I think we're talking like early 90s. And this thing was put out. And this was, yeah, let me see. 1994 is what the publication date says.
Wow.
Walker in the Waste. And so this is, a campaign that was written by John Crow, back then by Pagan, published by Pagan Publishing. And it has always been one of my favorites. It has a really great uh, opening chapter. Um, again, it's uneven. It's a little uneven, I'll say, but it has some real highlights in it. I personally, a lot of the stuff for me with these campaigns is nostalgia, right? So I got this when I was in college. I ran this a little bit in college, and so it's always been something that's resonated with me. Now, interestingly enough, we talk about the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society and their prop kit. Walker in the Waste also came with a prop kit, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's I mean, obviously it's a single envelope. It's not the ginormous box like we have, but again, they were paving some ground for that sort of thing. So it's a fantastic campaign, and I've run it not all the way through. It kind of fizzled out in college, and I've never revisited it since. But it's always one of the things that I look back on as something that had some real promise to it.
Sure. And it's interesting too that the memory of it is connected with a particular time and place and group, right?
Absolutely.
Because even sort of a shitty campaign, which that does not sound like it is, but even a
Yeah,
shitty campaign can be fun with the right group of players. We were just before
exactly.
I hit the record button, we were talking about a specific scenario, which we won't mention, which on the page is not great, but at the table can be a lot of fun. You're playing
Exactly.
with your friends. We like to role play. We like the interactions at the table. I'm not going to surprise anybody with my first pick when we've already talked about it in the podcast in the show here. And of course, I'm talking about the 2 volume set. This is
Hmm.
the most recent edition of the Orient Horror on the Orient Express. And I like this for several reasons. I like this because it was sort of the spawning of a bunch of things of me running a campaign for for a huge group of players. It was the first time I did that. I like it because I'm going to be honest, Bob, I wasn't expecting much. I thought, okay, it's a bunch of linked scenarios on a train where you have to assemble this gigaw and then ta-da.
Yeah.
Um, so I didn't have my expectations were pretty low, and it just really blew me away. It
Yeah.
it
No.
the way that it sucked the players in, the fun that I had crafting the different elements, the choices I made and how to run it and what it's so big. There's so
Yep.
many hours of play involved in it that I ran it for a year and cut 50% of it.
Yep. No, it's I love it. Again, it's one of my favorites. I've run it let me see. Three times. Three times.
Start to
Not as
finish.
many uh we had the last one did not end. It did not end with it ended with a TPK, right? But the other two I ran all the way through to completion.
And I would say, and I do say this, it shows when I bump into people, but I think a beginning keeper could run this.
Yeah.
I think it's got enough rails, no pun intended, but it's got enough hand holding that someone brand new could run this right out of the gate.
Yeah, they could. They could.
And not have to have a whole lot of anxiety about doing it wrong or worrying about things connecting up. I think that would be just fine.
For sure.
Bob,
Yep. You ready
I
for number
cut you
two?
off. Well, did you want to say anything more about Hoto?
No, I mean, again, it's my absolute favorite. I mean, I think that I would it for me edges Masks because I also got to play Orient Express, right? I've only ever run Masks, but I got to play Orient Express and then run Orient Express. So it wins by a nose, for me.
Oh, that's interesting because of your thousands of hours of TTRPG playing. You actually got to play this one.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That was we got that at the Gen Con when it was released. The hands of Greg Stafford gave that book
Now
to my buddy.
you're talking about this version.
Oh yeah, the box set. Yep, absolutely. Is that in shrink?
No, nothing
Okay,
of
okay.
mine is in shrink.
All right, good, good, good. All right, fantastic. All right. I was going to be upset. So yeah, it is I could do an entire episode on masks or on Horror in the Orient Express nostalgia stuff, but again, it was one of those deals where it was the first mega campaign that me and my group of buds back in the day ran from start to finish.
Yeah. All right, I'm ready, and the world awaits. What's your choice? Now,
Number
number
two.
one, before you reveal
Yep.
this,
Yep.
number one, I don't know if I'd ever heard of. Maybe I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Walker in the Wastes. So
Walker in the Waste.
I'm very keen on choice number two.
You'll definitely have heard of this one. Time to Harvest.
Start talking, buddy.
Time to Harvest. So that was, that came out, really, I look at that as the first modern campaign, if you will, right? And what I talk about in terms of modern campaign, I'm talking about the new era of Chaosium when Rick and company took over, right? And changed everything. Again, they took us into the promised land, out of those dark days that I had to deal with, right? Again, and I had to deal with as a fan, right? And I say this as a fan because all those fans who were with me during that time, they know what I was talking about. So again, I cannot give enough credit and thanks to Rick and his crew for turning things around and making this hobby into what it is today.
That's very kind, and of course, everybody knows who Rick is because we just aired the episode of Rick with his hammer, leading us through the various editions of Masks.
Yeah. But back to this, Time to Harvest. Okay, so this was released as a series of free books, right? I mean, the free chapters that they gave to us players to run, and then they packaged it all up in this magnificent book, right? And so it was so much fun. Again, I won't say that it didn't require a little bit of tinkering towards the end, but I will say that the first like the first 4 chapters were fantastic. We had a great time with it, so much fun. And so it's rock solid stuff up until that last chapter where it goes in a direction that I did not love.
And we're just gonna now. Okay, so now when you talk about the last chapter for the published edition, it was reordered.
Oh, it was?
I believe.
How could that be?
So you ran it through the organized play campaign, as did I.
No, it's still the last chapter is still the last chapter. It's the very title is problematic of the last chapter.
Now you're going to make me go to my shelves. So I've got a whole love affair with that book. That was sort of my start in the whole thing. A confession.
It's easy to see why. It's easy to see why. It's a super fun little game. I mean, it really is. I mean, all the way through. And I could only imagine, again, I ran old school version before before it was published. And so I'm just looking through it and it looks already like it would have been a much better deal, right?
Yeah. I ran it through the organized play, and in fact, it was the first game of Call of Cthulhu that I ever ran.
Look at that.
While I had some of the books on my shelves, I'd never run it or played it. Wow. It's true. So when that came out and there was this opportunity to get a whole chapter each month and you could run it, I made a deal with my local comic book guy. I said, I will run this every Monday night in your store, and whoever shows up will play, and I'll handle, I'll finagle however it works. And oh, my phone's ringing here. This is live, folks, directly live to tape. So the comic book store, right? And people came and I ran the whole thing. It took a while to do. It was a ton of fun.
Did you get repeat players?
So what's that?
Did you have repeat players?
Oh yeah, I had. In fact, one of them is getting married in 2 weeks. My buddy Noah Lloyd, who I then went on and did some creative work with, and we had our whatever we called it, Reckoning of the Dead thing with scenarios and whatnot. He's actually getting married in 2 weeks. So I had
Congratulations
him. I had a
on it.
few other repeat players. I had a lot of drop-ins, and we went through the whole campaign. And for that last chapter, I invited everybody over to my house, the house that I'm in now, and we had like a big one session. And I made this big map for the encounter, and we had, it's like a meal and this whole big thing. I like that campaign a lot because it's easy to get, right?
Yep.
It picks right up off of a very cool Lovecraft story, and I don't say that about every Lovecraft story. There's some problematic. Lovecraft himself is problematic, his writing, and there's some stories that are better than others. Right? I'm not telling anybody that they don't know anything they don't know. But that one, it's set in Vermont.
Yep.
It's physically located near me, although there's whatever the village is called, like I don't know, whatever it's called. But the going to the village, coming back to the university, that's all good. Going back to the
Yep.
village,
Yep. I
and
love
uh
it.
and I sanded off the other stuff that wasn't so connected with Vermont. I didn't do the Chicago bit. I didn't do is there a Montreal or Quebec bit?
I don't know. I mean,
There's like a side thing in Canada.
there is.
Um,
I
there
didn't see
is,
that.
and I did do the last chapter because I am an over the top kind of guy. So I did the last
Yeah,
chapter.
I hated that last chapter. Um, oh yeah, so that's that back there. I don't know what that is.
I had an investigator death in the last chapter, and the guy, a good friend of mine, he was squealing like I just pulled one of his arms off. He was squealing about how unlikely. And I said, dude, it's the end of the campaign. We gotta have to have a death here. Come on.
Oh yeah, there was there was some there was some blood in that game for sure. But it was super fun. It was a blast.
How many times did you run it?
Just the once, just the once. Again, I'm I have I'm blessed and cursed, right, by a very stable player pool, right? And so that
Yeah,
means a lot of my stuff is one and done, right? And so that's why I'm so fortunate to be able to run Mass because I managed to piece together the few straggler players who haven't run it with me.
that's fantastic. That's good news. Okay, you ready for my number two? This could
Do
be
it.
continuous
I
because
want to see
it's
what this
not
is.
not a campaign. It's the House of Rillier,
Oh, okay.
which is 5 linked scenarios,
Okay.
all of them anchored closely to a different Lovecraft story.
Wow.
So
I
I took it, and like as you know, right? I tear books up. Like I
yeah,
don't know
for
if you can
sure.
see this, but I took it and I took elements from the 5th story
Uh-huh.
and moved them all the way forward to the 1st story. So I created a loose spine for all the different 5 scenarios.
Wow.
And I linked it together. And the thing that I really like about it is that it's not world changing.
Okay. Yeah, I love
There,
that.
there,
That's
there's
fantastic.
no great old one coming.
Okay.
It's much more prosaic, and the like the and in the first scenario, which is written by my good friend Brian Cordomage, it picks up right immediately after Pickman's model.
Fantastic. I love that. I mean, wow.
Set right in the same set in Boston, so the players could actually read the story, and then we could pick it up right from there. And then
Wow.
all of them are anchored to kind of a maybe a lesser known Lovecraft story. I don't know, but it's all very kind of approachable, and the threat's not huge. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun running this.
No, that that sounds great. And I will confess, I was not aware of that book.
And it's funny. I think Brian Sammons, who's the dude that wrote
Yeah.
Time to Harvest. I think he wrote one of these.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic stuff. I mean,
Sure did. He wrote the last one.
wow, that's super cool. I did somehow I missed that one, right? I have a pretty much everything, but somehow I missed that one.
Well, I'm glad you have anything because once we end this recording, there's a product that I don't have that I want to ask you about.
All right, all right.
If it's worth me tracking it down.
For sure. No, that's really cool. I mean, again, and I was just looking through my shelf right before we started this, and I do want to do another one of these where we talk about scenarios, our favorite scenarios, uh,
Just scenarios.
just scenarios, and those can be chapters from any of the fantastic books that Chaosium's published over the years, or one of these one-off deals that are out there.
I like that. And but we'll talk about published things so that people that
Yeah.
are interested could actually find.
That's right.
Although
That's
I
right.
wonder how hard it is to track down a copy of Walker in the Wastes. I'm going to look.
I think you have to pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Bob, you want to do a little begging?
Hey, we did a very special episode for you all. So that means that you should be enticed to tell your friends about this. And even if they're not playing Mass, they can listen to these very special episodes. So you should have them subscribe and click the little bell and everything else, all the stuff. Please.
And all the magic
please.
will happen. All the glitter will come down. So thanks so much, folks, for joining us again. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And and if you like this, make sure to tell us in the comments. And if
That's
you'd
right.
like to see more of these sort of unnumbered special editions where Matt and Bob ramble on because we got nothing better to do, let us know. I'm looking for the stop button.